All right, so welcome everybody. This is the 30th of July, and this is our FPGA meeting for Open Research Institute. We we talk about what we've done over the past little bit, usually a week, and we talk about what we have planned for the next week. And we ask if there's any resources that we need. We talk about things we need, and we discuss roadblocks and if we need any help with roadblocks. And we do this in a roundtable format. And so I'll go ahead and I'll hand it off to Ken to lead us off. I know that your report might be pretty brief,
Yeah.
but go ahead and fill us in on your plans for the next week and anything that you need.
Yeah, I think we kind of hit a stumbling block with that no OS approach. We were getting problems with the scripts. They seem to have like a parsing problem. It spins into the weeds somewhere in the build there. So we were trying to bring up a new instance, a new server, and I think that's still a work in progress. So have not made much progress here the last week. Sorry about that. But I think going forward, I'll just try and hammer the issue. I think it is clock related. Yeah, so maybe I can go over and look at the card itself. At one point, we did not get it's the strange thing about this phenomenon is at least some of the messages we didn't originally get. They cropped up later. And usually problems are repeatable in this type of, and they don't permanently, after you reboot the card, go in this weird kind of state. So it feels like somehow a clock, because the nature of the first error at least is a it's an error that is clock related. It's trying to report on it like a lock status of some of the Certus lanes. And I've talked this over with Michelle, and I know that she says that config hasn't changed, but maybe just going through and reviewing the whole setup and maybe rebuilding things from the ground up in that sense would help, because we should be able at least to get it repeatable. It'd be nice to get back to the first time we did it. It wasn't totally problem free, but there were a lot fewer issues. And at this point, I don't think the script is actually completing the full run. It gives you this little cryptic bye message, which we didn't use to get. So got to figure out how to get back there.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to the next week, and we'll try very hard to get the no OS or no operating system build working so that we can test out this is the receive side for the central node or spacecraft for the transceiver. And that's where the Opulent Voice signals will be sent to. So when we get both of these things working, it'll be very exciting. So as you can see, there's lots of steps along the way for getting that to work. The polyphase filter bank itself, which is what's handling a lot of the work of receiving all of the uplink signals that we're working hard to make happen. That part, the logic part, is working as intended, working well, simulating well, and what we're trying to do is to prove that it works with actual signals over the air. And the problem that we've consistently run into is configuring the RFIC in the payload. So that's what Ken's talking about, and that's what we'll keep working on over the next week. Okay, there's lots of updates from Opulent Voice. So I'd like to give Matthew and Everest the floor to talk about what they've done, what's planned next, and if there's any resources that are needed. And I know of at least one, and then any roadblocks along the way. So the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I think last week there was some good progress made getting everything moved into the GitHub repository, so that's all done. So I appreciate everybody's work on that. And there's the able to makes very good sense with the README to how to build everything. So I was able to build yesterday. As you I think noted or at least referenced, the VMs are fairly slow. Particularly with the firmware builds, in addition to the FPGA build. But everything's looking really good. We have a firmware that we're trying on Pluto, trying to get some. We have in the FPGA, there's a PRBS generator and a digital loopback within the modem, and we're getting data out of that, but it's not quite there yet. But I'm hoping it'll work. There was a misconfiguration in the PRBS that I noted, and it could be that we're hitting the phase ambiguity, and so we've added some reads reads with both ambiguity states so that we can see if one works and the other doesn't. So I think we're pretty close on that. Hopefully we'll see that working here shortly. Because it works great in simulation. So unless there's something happened between simulation and the FPGA build, I'm expecting it should work. So in the main holdup had been the AXI bus had been the first iteration writes were working but reads weren't. The second iteration the reads were working but the writes weren't. And so we have a third iteration now that's using a system RDL that compiles to the registers, and it creates an AXI interface for us. And the reads and writes for that appear to be working correctly. So it should just be a matter of, at this point, configuring the modem correctly, and hopefully we'll see the PRBS with no bit errors in one of the two states. And then moving forward, I noted in the Slack channel that I think the two paths to move forward on would be getting RF output, and we should be able to see a spectrum, and then we can loop back in the 809363 or even analog loop back, and we should, using the internal PRBS, be able to get a 0-bit error. And then in parallel, we could be working on getting the DMA transmit and receive working. And again, the RF path doesn't need to be in place because we can use the modem's loop back. So that allows us to pursue both paths as we have time.
Yeah, fantastic.
I think that's all I have for the moment.
That's a lot. Thank you so much. Everest, the floor is yours.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, a lot of improvements. I'm very confident with the GitHub folder now, and it's very easy to see all the commits, and having all on the same place is very helpful. I test with the latest script from Matthew, and the PRBS seems the same. And I will try also to output to RF. Well, I have to do that, so I need to inspect more all the registers, but with the RDL, and well, it's quite easy to have all the mapping, and the comments are there. So yeah, that's it. I think that we begin to see some live sorry, from the Pluto and the MSK. So it's very good news.
Yeah, definitely extremely good news. Thank you very, very much for all the extremely competent and wonderful hard work. Okay, so we've mentioned some performance issues with the virtual machines that host a lot of this work. So we have virtual machines that are attached to hardware in the lab. And I went ahead and put for comparison, put how long it takes to make the build. So you download Pluto MSK, and what you're building is the bitstream, the XSA, all of that, and then you also build the firmware. And so, like Everest mentioned, this is a sort of a package that you can do all of these things with one repository using submodules, and the submodules are organized in a way that lets us reuse a lot of the source code. So some big steps forward there. But making these things on ChocoCat or on any of the VMs seems to be slower than expected. It's definitely slower than you would think based on the what type of hardware that we have, how many threads are available, the SSDs that we have. So I went ahead and put like how many minutes it takes, and then Everest added how long it's taking him on his personal machine, and it's a pretty big difference. So I'll hand it off to Paul to give us maybe some perspective on this and some possible ways forward to try to fix it.
Okay. I'm not sure how much of this we covered on previous meetings, but a little bit of a recap. It doesn't seem like we're CPU bound based on the CPU utilization shown by the profiles. That means we're probably disk bound. That's my theory anyway. And we have some additional disks ready to plug into the system. This should greatly improve the disk throughput of the VMs. In order to do that, we need to find a window of time during which I'm available and the rest of you are not trying to use the system to bring the system down, install the disks, and then play with different configurations for what might end up being a few days to find out what the best way to utilize the new storage capabilities would be.
Okay, I have a proposal for that.
Okay, let's hold that thought for a moment. The other possibility is that the disk storage is not the bottleneck, that there's some kind of problem with the CPUs running at full speed. One suggestion was that it might be related to cache memory. That does not appear to be the case. The cache memory that we have is compatible or consistent with what the CPU chip we're using is supposed to provide, and it's a fast system. It should be plenty of cache. There's always a possibility that the virtual machine environment is causing that to not work very well. But without a concrete suggestion on what to do about that, I'm kind of at a loss. I do not know how to make any progress on that front. So I would like to go ahead and proceed with the disk upgrade when it makes sense. I certainly don't want to get in the way of people who are steaming forward and making great progress, though. So I don't want to do it sooner than is convenient. So now go ahead with your suggestion, Michelle.
Well, I have one that's relatively easy, but will cause some downtime for Remote Lab West, and then another one that would require a lot of crash travel. So the first suggestion is just let's wait till after DEF CON, and then we take down Remote Lab West and do everything, and I'll help as I can be hands and second set of a second set of hands in the lab at least. And then we just take it down, do the disk upgrades, bring it back up, and then see what happens. See if it improves things. Which it's the best theory that we have. The other alternative is to leave Remote Lab West exactly the way it is, and then I go and get all of the equipment from Remote Lab South, and we do the experiment with the new drives for Remote Lab South and catch that up and leapfrog. And then we wouldn't be stopping anybody from using any of the VMs. It'd still be slow, which is disappointing, but it wouldn't prevent anybody from carrying out experiments or having the resource.
Well, that would certainly solve that problem. Of course, then the remote lab south equipment would be here instead of there. There were some chances of it being used there by somebody.
Right. Yeah, we could do this experiment pretty much almost anywhere, I reckon, you know, because I'm qualified to use a screwdriver, and I think I can manage to, so we could set it up wherever. We have a lot of good leads for setting up the lab. And no commitments yet though, and no space. But doing the, you know, being able to go and handle it in person and get it pushed through. That may be it provides a fairly compelling motivation to go ahead and do it, and would get it caught up and surpass what we have in Remote Lab West. So the easier solution is to the one that interrupts people, which I hate doing, is to take everything down and upgrade the lab in San Diego.
Yeah, trying to find a specific spot in the schedule that minimizes the disruption is difficult. I don't know what everybody's schedules are going to be over the next few weeks.
Well, there's never a great time for it, but right after DEF CON would probably be the best for us.
Yeah, that of course that doesn't help us with a push to get stuff ready for DEF CON.
Well, no, it doesn't. But you know, if now that we know how long the builds take, so the initial build is longer for both of the steps for building the repository and building the bit file and all that, and then updating the firmware is also a significant build. But modifications to these, like updating source code, they take less time, and that's published now in the README. So at least you know how long the hit is, and you can go do something else. So I guess once it's a quantifiable amount of time and you're not sitting there waiting, wondering why it doesn't take 7 minutes, you know, that's at least a step in the right direction.
Okay.
Either one, either one, the schedule is going to be after DEF CON, so we don't really have to decide right now. I'm just saying that those are the things that we can do to mitigate the performance problems.
All right. Well, the only only issues going on right now with the remote lab, as far as I know. So that wraps up my report, I suppose.
Okay, and yeah, and thank you. This is ambitious, difficult work, and I'm confident that we can figure out what's going on and get it to be as blazing fast as it should be. Is there any other equipment that we're looking at for remote lab? I know that we did some power measurements for the for Puerto Rico. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we did do that. The Puerto Rico people were reporting that they were getting less power output than they wanted from the Pluto. The Pluto is rated at +7 dBm, which is not very much power, but they were getting less than that. So as a additional data point, I hooked up the Pluto with the Pluto TXFM software and drove it with the OPV mod software, and I got less than +7 dBm as well, but not as much less, I don't think. I got about +3, 4 dB shy of the spec, or +0 if you measure it wrong. So that may be responsible for a couple of dB if they were measuring it the naive way, or it may just be variation from unit to unit. I don't know why it's not the full +7. I think I've done everything I can in software to make the Pluto give its full output power using the full dynamic range of the DAC and setting the attenuator at the output to 0. There's no additional gain to turn on as far as I know. If anybody knows different, I'd be happy to hear about it.
Yeah, I think they can work with 3 dBm for the launch. They'd be happier with 7, of course, but they do have a ground station that's capable, and getting it up to a little higher than what they were working with is good. So thank you very much for the support. Okay, and then Jeremy, hello there, and welcome, and you have the floor.
Yeah, I'm just here in the capacity of observer for today. I think some of the things that I want to talk about are best handled in the meeting later today.
Okay, well, looking forward to that and see you there. All right, any last comments, questions? Anybody need anything before we close for the day? My report is that we'll be, oh, please go ahead, Everest, sorry.
Yeah, Michel, you used a test software with IO, but I can't find it. Did you put it on GitHub, or which means that yeah, you have maybe some wrong register, but if the source code is on GitHub, then we can collaborate on that. And I think that we can also insert this in the firmware itself. So
Okay.
please, if you can bring me the link, or if you can add it to GitHub, it could be very helpful.
Okay, yeah, there's a copy from a day or so back in the Slack channel, the software review or website review channel. I put it there, but no, I haven't been putting it up to GitHub because it's a fairly rough code. It's an adaptation of the streaming example that from Analog Devices, and all I'm trying to accomplish is to write and read registers. Hasn't really even gotten it to the point where I'd like it, which would be like a very pretty readout of it, similar to the regs dump that we have. We have a script that did a really nice job of dumping the registers for the DVB-S2 encoder. But yes, I'll share it. It's the old copy is on Slack in the website review channel, and then I'll make it available. But yes, I was using the stale register map. So I went to the source code and made a register map for the README file for Pluto MSK. And I kept using that, and I can see now that there's been some changes in the register addresses and the offsets, sorry, the offset addresses. And unless somebody else if somebody else updates that register map, then great. We talked briefly about maybe automating this process, which would be pretty fabulous to have that, to have the README reflect like, here's what the register map is from source code without us having to manually update it. Old-fashioned people like me really like having register maps, and so that's what the problem was, that I was using a stale version from a couple of days ago. So thank you for all of that. I'll comply and share the code and keep working at it. What I'm aiming for is to be able to do to work through IIO and rely on DMA, and to exercise the Pluto over the air, and then start integrating the remote access functions like MQTT, and then start looking at like, okay, can we bring this out to maybe web interface or something nice, to start putting some UI elements in there just to kind of show what's going on. So that's kind of the goal with that code. All right. And then let's see, another thing that I've been working on is getting ready for DEF CONs. That's coming up. That's the 8th through the 11th of August. We will have a booth there. We call it a booth. It's really a table, new venue, Las Vegas Convention Center. Totally different this year. So we've over the past number of years, we've had a great relationship with RF, or Radio Frequency Village, at DEF CON. It's been a fantastic experience. It's a very, very large show. There's lots of people like us there. We'll see how it goes this year. We have a speaking slot. We talk about our regulatory work with respect to synthetic aperture radar being done open source. So this is an area of a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So we'll be presenting, technically, like, what is SAR, what is synthetic aperture radar, why have projects self-censored or withdrawn their work, what does the law really say, and what can the experimenter and open source communities do? What are you allowed to do? What's legal? And why would you want to do it anyway? and where can you experiment? So those questions are things that we handle in our talk, and we'll answer at the booth or table. So that's what we'll be working to finalize all of those things and get that ready. We're really looking forward to it. It's an excellent show with a good crowd. All right, back to you guys. Any questions or comments, concerns? All right, everybody, thank you so much for all of the amazing hard work, and I'll see you on Slack. And then we'll also have a meetup later today at my time. It'll be 1500 hours US Pacific, and we'll talk about a variety of other things relating to FPGA work and open source hardware and software. All right, thanks everybody. See you soon.